with us right now in studio. Many thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Avi.
Well, of course, Daktari, before we get into this conversation, we want to ask you to join us on our Super Wall so that we can just look at some of the aspects that your party stands for, and of course, you'll be taking us through that. Well, just join us on our Super Wall right now, and we should be able to show Kenyans what and the genesis of your journey. You can be on that left.
Right.
So right now we want to quickly look at some of the key aspects that have defined his presidential candidacy. And there we have it. In a short while, we'll be able to take you through the key issues around him. And here we have it. So Dr. Ekuru Aukot is vying on the Third Way Alliance, and he's also a respected academician and constitutional expert. And he can be able to, of course, tell us more about that as we move along. Some of the key issues that his campaign will be premised on is pillars to guide his presidency, constitutionalism, fighting corruption, depolarizing Kenya, youth and women empowerment. And I'd like you to take us through the next slide, Daktari, if we have the next slide. Well, there we have it. Yes. How would you plan to fund your campaign?
So, okay, this is, we are trying a new concept in our politics because we felt that the billions of Kenya shillings that politicians have used in the past is money that cannot be accounted for. That it has made Kenyans not to own a campaign or a leadership, not to be able to call that campaign into account. So what we have said is that this has become a recipe, big money has become a recipe for bad leadership. It has commercialized our leadership. So it's like the highest bidder. And that has brought a lot of contempt by leaders into the people. But the people of Kenya have also contributed to some extent because of this culture of handouts. So what we are trying to do is to ask Kenyans, if you believe in a campaign, if you want real change must begin when the people themselves actually own a campaign. And you know, we borrowed this concept from the 2008 Obama campaign in the US, where he received as little as $1, $5. In fact, it's just, I don't know whether you had intelligence, but today we just received our pay bill number, which is 809069, where the ordinary Kenyan can actually M-Pesa us money, and that will be able to make us come around and share with these ideas.
Quite a unique model, I must say.
It's a model because the idea is when people come with this big money, they're not able to explain. So we actually tie big money with grand corruption scandals. I mean, a very latest one, as you know, is the tender wars between NASA and Jubilee over who should print the ballots.
We'll be getting to that time. Let's
talk about 2.5 billion.
I agree. Well, let's quickly recap some of the other pillars that we did mention that he'll be premising his campaign on. I don't know if you can have that on the screen so that we can be able to walk our viewers through this. Well, so this is what fundamentally his party is all about. It's Third Way Alliance.
Kenya, actually. The full name is Third Way Alliance Kenya.
All right. So the next slide will be able to give us a better picture of what the party really is all about. If you can get quickly to that slide. Well, there we have it. So talk to us about this.
So I think these pillars are not updated in your system. There are basically 6 key pillars that define our campaign and my presidency. The number one, which we'll be talking at length, is the idea of ending economic and social injustices in Kenya. We think that Kenya is so unequal. There has been exclusion of Kenyans in terms of economic opportunities. So that even when drought comes about or famine, people do not have the power to purchase. If you look at the question of unga today, which is really biting the ordinary Kenyan, it doesn't matter whether you are from Mishaweri village in Kiambu or Bondo or Kapedo, where I come from. It's an economic factor, and it's a question of leadership. So we feel that the leadership of this country has never attempted to actually end economic and social injustice by giving Kenyans an economic opportunity wherever they may be. So that's our first-most pillar. And within that pillar, we have got the need to end theft of public money. We don't actually call it corruption, as you have written in here. We call it theft of public money.
The semantics.
No, it's not semantics. You know, we've actually asked guys, we've gone around. Like yesterday, we were in Kiberala in Sabah, and we were asking people, what is corruption in your mother tongue? And most people say, no, we only know theft. So the first fight of fighting corruption is to speak the language that people understand.
Sure.
That if you're entrusted with billion, like now many county governments are entrusted with billion that is supposed to bring development, grow agriculture, but they are not able to account for it, that is stolen money. So we are saying we must end that theft of public money, theft of public property, like the way land is being grabbed, public land.
Then, of course, we'll be getting to hear from you how you will do it.
We will talk about it.
But let's proceed.
Now, the other one is ending tribalism and negative ethnicity, which of course is to depolarize Kenya from this negative identity. If you look at our politics today, again, is that we are being organized around ethnicity.
Yes.
And that has really pitted community against community, region against region, so that you see today a few tribal chiefs organize their community, they bring them together, and the next thing they form a government, they actually form a government that excludes the majority. Again, that offends the Constitution, which is really our pillar number 5, which is to protect and implement the Constitution, the abolition in particular, and the rule of law. And then, of course, there is the youth and women. We are changing the language. We are not talking about empowerment, actually. We are talking about youth and women taking over government because they're the majority. They're the ones who are affected by poor economic policies and all those kind of things. And then the last one is that, this is a sixth one we came up with just last month, is that Kenya has lost its respectability internationally. So we want to put Kenya into the global competitive agenda by ensuring that we earn our respect. So when we talk about things like climate change, human rights, ending corruption, there is actually respect for our leadership because the current leadership that is there, even in government and in opposition, actually cannot highball the other and say, we are better off, we can fight. Internationally, we have lost that respect, which is why one of our campaign messages is that it is time ya kufagia wote, because if we want that respectability internationally and regionally, then we must present a credible leadership.
All right.
We currently do not have that credible leadership in Kenya.
Okay. Well, we're just setting the scene for the discussion that will be happening. And let me allow Daktari, let's head back to the hot seat where we'll be able to delve deeper and understand what your manifesto is all about. Of course, if you're just joining us, we are hosting today the presidential candidate running under the Third Way Alliance Kenya Party, and that is Dr. Ekuru Aukot. And of course, Daktari, right now, every politician is trying to put their manifesto together. Every presidential candidate. Today, NASA was supposed to launch their manifesto. They've moved it to the 27th.
Yes.
We've not heard anything from your secretariat.
Yeah. I think maybe you've not heard from us because you haven't been too closely following what we've been doing. Kenyans perhaps will remember that we are actually the first political party. I'm probably the first now presidential candidate to have declared my intent to run, to lead this country. I did that last year in February because I had the conviction that this is something that we must do. And at the same time, we also placed a 5-key agenda, which we have now had it at 6th one.
Yeah,
one
the
I've just explained.
Pillars, yes.
Yes, so we will also be launching our manifesto anytime, probably within this week or next week.
Sure.
We will definitely be making that announcement.
All right.
But everything is ready, and we've been selling it. In fact, if you follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and others, you will see that we've actually been, and we will forward you the 6-point updated version of our manifesto.
All right, we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So, Daktari, talk to us about your economic agenda. What is the philosophy around it? Because right now, the big issues that are affecting majority of Kenyans is the high cost of living. Of course, there's high youth unemployment and the industrialization agenda. What will your presidency be all about in the economic front?
Okay, now, this is a very good question, Abi. Number one, this speaks to the pillar we call ending economic and social injustice in this country. Now, you ask of our philosophy. We started this way. It's a factor of leadership that Kenya's economy has for the last 54 years been exclusive of majority. It's an economy that is largely concentrated on about 2 or 1% of individuals who are in the political class mainly, the rich, the haves and the have-nots. So you find that it's a Kenya that is so unequal that we think industries must only be in Nairobi. And that's why in our economic pillar, we have decided that leadership must be central in leading the country to a proper economic plan, to industrialize. And I say this because I want to remind Kenyans that in the 1960s or 70s, we were actually at par with the tiger economies of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and there is South Korea. We're even better than them, in fact, if you look at the history. But it was a factor of leadership of people like Lee Kuan Yew who said, this is the strategic direction, the stewardship I want to give my country to be where it is today, so that Singapore, even a beggar, a homeless person on the streets of Singapore, if they choose to be homeless, is actually a millionaire. Because you know their GDP is about $33,000 per annum. That's a wealthy country. The economy of South Korea is about 50 times that of Kenya. So the number one philosophical underpinning of our economic pillar is leadership. There has to be leadership that is responsive, that is transformative, that is keen to see what economic opportunity obtains out there and do it. So the first thing that, for example, we will do in the 100 days of our leadership is actually we will declare, I mean, we're calling it here, we will declare the following significant threat to our nationhood. And that's one, ending economic and social injustice, theft of public money, the plight of youth and women, protecting the constitution, and tribalism, ending tribalism. That really is a significant threat to our country right now. Now, that is the philosophy. And so that if you look at the leadership of this country, it has been more about trickle-down economics as opposed to enterprise economics. There is no bottom-up economic development plan and agenda, and which is why you look at our plan further. We identify the context. What is the context of Kenya today in ending economic and social injustice? You look at the factors of GDP. It is declining. Economic lies have been told. We are being told that the economy is growing by 2 digits. It is not true, because then you have got a dishonest leadership. You're talking about lack of prudent macroeconomic policies. Kenyans lack basics like unga, water. There is rise in global oil prices. There is insecurity in this country. You cannot actually invest because insecurity is a big issue. And that has given difficult economic environment. We know about the Yana Tires, the Standard Bank, the Barclays Bank, the Nakumats. These are all people who are either closing now or have transferred business elsewhere. So that is the context within which you're talking about. Inflation is high. And then there's another one, banking sector. You know, banking sector is affected. Jobs have gone. So with this context, Abi, what we now need to do, and this is the plan for Third Way Alliance, number one, we want to industrialize economic opportunity in every part of this country. And I can give you many examples. Meat processing, for example, in this country, nobody is growing it. In the Asa region, we just did a count about 11 counties in this country, 11 counties, that could actually go into meat processing and production, and even the byproducts that come with meat. Our research team visited Homa Bay, and I have been to Homa Bay myself, to Rusinga and Mfangano Island. The fishing industry there is not developed, even though from Rusinga and Mfangano Island, they actually pump into the GDP of Kenya about 7 billion Kenya shillings annually. But you do not have a single fish processing plant in the entire Nyanza. You have a fish processing plant in Thika. Now, that's an economic injustice. You go down coast, cashew nut and coconut production. It's not there. Agro-processing, Kikomi, what happened to our cotton? Eveready in Ekuru, textile industry, and all those agro-processing.
So you're saying you want to have an industrialization agenda as well.
So we will have an industrialization, and this is how we are going to make sure that there is industrial parks.
Before you proceed, we want to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be picking it up from that point where he will be giving us his agenda on the youth as well as creating jobs, all that after this quick commercial break.